Councillors, it's gone 6 o'clock, so we will start the meeting. Nala Kadich, Wajak Mort, Kayan Karak Nijawalilak Buja, Wejinang Wajak Karajan, we're knitting Bula Yaya. We acknowledge the Wajak people as the traditional owners of the Greater Fremantle Walyalup area, and we recognise that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important today. Attendance, apologies, leaves of absence. Councillor Lang is an attendance rather than leave of absence, so we will acknowledge that in the minutes. Councillor Moughlin is on leave of absence, and Councillor Groom, unfortunately, is unwell and is an apology. Do we have any applications for leaves of absence? Bearing in mind that sort of heading towards the end of the year, we probably want to make sure they're booked in. No, nobody wants a holiday. That's good. Do we have any disclosures of interest by members? No? Okay. So responses to previous public questions taken on notice are contained in the agenda. That's going to take us to public question time. We have 2 people listed to speak, and if you haven't spoken here before, or if you have, I'll remind you that it's 3 minutes. You will be recorded for the purpose of keeping the minutes. The microphone will just leave on, and if you're heading over the 3-minute mark, I'll give you a bit of a signal to wrap up. And the first person is Ian Kerr.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. I do have one question and one statement. Do I do them both now? Okay, thank you. The question relates to the proposed changes to the Local Government Act. And I ask, how and when will the City of Fremantle involve the community in responding to the changes to the Local Government Act announced by the Local Government Minister on the 21st of September, particularly noting that that will involve reductions in the number of councillors and consequently ward changes, which will be very significant. My other item relates not to something that's on the agenda, but with something which is very current, and that is the Swan River Crossings project. Many people from the community and from government agencies contributed considerable time, knowledge and effort to real consultation on that project in the second half of 2020, including 2 very intensive half-day forums. The principal outcomes of these forums included preserving the heritage of the traffic bridge, an exciting opportunity to facilitate more use of the river and foreshores by locals and tourists alike, and general support for the project to continue to the next stage of the development of the project. However, only if a commitment could be made by government that the Alliance team would be required to continue the community consultation to investigate the best location for the bridges with due consideration given to heritage, movement and place. What we were presented with on the 21st of August precludes retention of any part of the existing bridge. It introduces 14,000 vehicles a day on Main Road's own figures to the river foreshore. It destroys valuable mature vegetation and fragments the remaining open space close to the river, and emphasises movement to the almost total exclusion of heritage and place. Moreover, it was launched on us after 12 months of almost total silence. So much for consultation. The latest proposal is a new and distinctly different one from that previously supported by the community and confirmed by the Minister for Transport in August 2021. Will the City of Fremantle act on its position as stated at the Design Frio Forum on the 30th of July 2020 that Main Roads, quotes, be asked to put at least 2 options out there for real discussion? There is clearly a need for informed discussion on the relative merits of the current proposal and the one agreed in August 2021. All that is being offered so far are information sessions and pop-up information booths that only present the current proposal as a fait accompli. Now, I'm aware that Council and its committees will have meetings on this during during the next month, I just take this opportunity to say that there is very strong community feeling out there, not only about the particular proposal, but about the way it has been arrived at and presented. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ian. On the Local Government Act, I might just get the CEO to say a few words.
Thanks, through the chair. Obviously, the minister's only recently announced a local government reform. Officers will put a report up through the council process in the October round of meetings, and I'm sure we'll have council debate on how we go about and what decisions we make at that time.
And to add to that, I think we are required to do community engagement, albeit we would do it anyway, given the magnitude of the change. The next person to speak is Ali Messenger.
Hi everybody, I hope everybody's having a lovely afternoon on such a beautiful day. I'm a member of the Fremantle Youth Network, so I've had a lot of interaction with Fremantle staff members, and just kind of the Fremantle Council system. Um, and so I've noticed, I guess, a lot of shortcomings, and this would particularly relate to the LGBTQA plus community, especially as I'm a trans woman. This is very important to me. I've noticed simple things such as having pronouns, such as I use she, they pronouns, and I include them in my emails, simple things like that, or resource booklets at the front desk downstairs for anybody who comes in, has been eluded. It's not been put into place. And I have heard it many times from my peers on the Fremantle Youth Network that we need these things. Something as simple as pronouns, which should not be a struggle. And so I don't know how far up the chain it's getting. It could be stopping at the person just above me. I don't know who's heard it. So I felt necessary to bring it to the councillors to find out what's actually being done. And so my question is, what is being done to improve the LGBTQA plus experience in Fremantle on a, I would say, through simple things that could be introduced on a very small scale that should be minimal effort, but would have such a major impact both on how the city is viewed and the experience of LGBTQA plus people.
Is that everything, or did you?
That's all, yes, thank you.
Thanks, Ali. It's the first I've heard about it, so we will do some research and come back to the Fin to respond to some of those things that you've raised. Thank you. Cool. That brings us to the end of public question time. Thank you for coming along tonight and asking questions. I don't believe we have any petitions. I certainly haven't heard about any, so nope, all good. And neither deputations, special deputations or presentations. So that I know about. Yes. Not elected member communication.
No, but
good.
Yes. I apologise for my lateness. I missed disclosures of interest, and I need to declare a impartiality interest in the item about the fishing boat harbour. I work for the Department of Transport, but not in that area or on that project.
Thank you, Councillor Pemberton. All good. So we'll move. I'll move that we confirm the minutes of ordinary meeting of Council 24 August. Can I get a seconder for that? Councillor Graham. All those in favour? Yep. Is there any elected member communication? We're all good. Okay, there is nothing that has come to us from planning. I suspect because planning did not have a choice, Councillor Jones. Everything had to be dealt with on the night. Good work, hard work. Yes, yeah, and thank you acknowledging those members who did spend a whole day at JDAP on behalf of the city. Thank you for doing that. So we'll go through the FPOL items. So I'll move FPOL 22093, which is the Fremantle Harbours Master Plan. Can I get a seconder for the Officer Rec? Yep, Councillor Kamada. I don't know if we want to go into debate or if we want to move straight into the amendments, of which I have two. First one from Councillor Lorver. So, should we jump into that? Councillor Lorver, did you want to move your amendment? Do you have a seconder for Councillor Lawver's amendment? We'll just pop that up on the screen. It's in relation. Councillor Thompson. Great. Councillor Lawver, over to you.
Great. This is just a pretty simple amendment. I've kind of flagged my intent to do this at F poll, so thank you for letting me speak to it at that point in time. But basically, just when we're putting our thoughts on the Fishing Boat Harbor Master Plan, the super yacht facilities, I just feel like should have an alternate purpose. These overly large pleasure boats, when they come into Fremantle, they will have an economic benefit, but they might just sit there being unused for a long time as well. So this hopefully just gets the point across that hopefully they can be designed in a way that provides more use than just that single purpose. So.
Thanks, Councillor Lawver. Did anyone else want to speak to this amendment? Councillor Pemberton.
Thank you. I will speak to it very briefly. I see the value in the super yacht kind of interest as an economic opportunity for Fremantle, but I really also see how much that directly contradicts everything in our One Planet policy, strategy, and so on. So I think at the very least, this proposal seeks to kind of balance that to some degree. If we get super yachts here, then let's make the most of it, but let's also make sure it's functional for everyone.
Councillors, further discussion? Councillor Graham.
Oh yeah, look, just anecdotally, my daughter spent 6 years working on super yachts, and basically they just swam around the Mediterranean between Portofino, Monaco, and Saint Tropez in the European summer, and then in the European winter they swam around the Caribbean. So I mean, if you were to get us 3 super yachts into Fremantle at any one time, I think everyone is dreaming, and the tourism department are certainly pushing the wrong barrow. So anyway, I've got an interesting anecdote after the dinner. I'll get everyone to guess how much a tip was left at a restaurant in Portofino. But that's more for dinner, not now. Thank you.
Maybe we shouldn't tell our hospitality operators. Councillor Sullivan.
Yeah, thanks. A couple of us did the tour of the super yacht maintenance industry areas last year, I think it was. And I get the cringe factor that probably many people in Fremantle, myself included, have about aspects of the super yacht industry, and that hasn't been lessened since Russia invaded Ukraine, and knowing how many oligarchs have these outrageously expensive pieces of equipment, probably ill-gotten. Having said that, there are also super yachts which are for hire and are part of the tourism industry, and they're not necessarily about extremes of wealth, but perhaps extremes of recreational access to some of our amazing coastal environments in Western Australia. There is an inability for the Asian circuit, because it's not just the Europeans that have super yachts. There are people in our own area that actually have these vessels as well. There is the difficulty of actually bringing a super yacht down here. They can get into the berths that are there for maintenance, but there's not much else that they can do. And it's a little bit like the industry when we had the cruise ships, the inability for the cruise ships necessarily to call into places like Broome and the like, and Albany, Esperance. And the more that you provide opportunities for that, the more those industries actually take advantage of the tourism industry. So it's not just, about a berth for some obscenely wealthy or corrupt person. It's about the industry that actually supports it, which can be in the millions of dollars in terms of our boat building and boat maintenance facilities down in Henderson. So I don't, we shouldn't be frivolous about this. It has been clearly recognised that WA needs super yacht berths. These shouldn't be the only ones, but it's good that they're proposed and in this plan, because it's absolutely will be a real boon for our region.
Thanks. Councillors, any further on that item? No, so I'll put the amendment to the vote. All those in favour of the amendment? That looks kind of unanimous. Yeah, good. All right, and on to the second amendment submitted by Councillor Sullivan, I think, which is going to come up on a screen. So you'd like to move that?
I'd like to move that, but I'd like to move it with a slight addition. So if we can scroll to that, just so that you can be sure that the addition is okay to come in this late.
So yeah.
Where is it? Yes. So it's just adding a last dot point about the cycle network essentially and the importance of it. So I'm hoping that you'll accept that as a minor amendment to my amendment.
On the basis it was discussed at FPOL and sort of didn't make it through, absolutely. So
Okay.
that's good.
So I'll move that with that amendment included.
Can I get a seconder for that? Councillor Lawver seconding that one. Over to you, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. Some of this is just finessing of the work that FPOL did, and I apologise I wasn't there. I was away that week. But some of it is actually adding in stuff that we've discussed over the years, stuff that we have in our policies, in our economic development work. And I just wanted to make sure it was emphasised and included in the final commentary back to Department of Transport. So that includes things like if the boat lifters are going to be relocated. We already have in the Fremantle Sailing Club a lot of boat maintenance, and the opportunity for those to sort of back-to-back each other and be able to get a boat and actually wheel it across to the boat lifters or vice versa across the road rather than dropping it back in the water and sailing it all the way around or barging it all the way around and then pulling it out the other side. So those sort of really simple things are quite important in the way the harbour could operate. It adds value. The emphasis obviously on the blue economy, but also the creative industries. That's part of, it has to be part of our commentary every time we get an opportunity to push that. We should be pushing that, and so I've tried to get that into there. The finessing and further assessing of the traffic flows. As you will have already heard me say, I'm not absolutely convinced that the vehicle crossing should be at Norfolk Street. I am absolutely convinced that the pedestrian crossing should be there. And I noticed in their plan that they've sort of kept a sort of hedged their bets both ways. They've sort of shown the old crossing still there as well as the new crossing. But it's more than that. It's also about having a real understanding about how we get to operate those roads and what can get closed down, and then what else has to be kept open to make sure that we not only get the best sort of entertainment, tourism, precinct opportunities in that area, but we also safeguard access to industry and we don't somehow inadvertently impinge on the industry's access. And in addition to that, the sort of longer term planning stuff, which is to do with the things that haven't been picked up in this process. So this is very much a maintenance master plan, if I can call it that. It's not aspirational. It's not long-term strategic. There are lots of things that need to be thought about in the longer term. We all agreed that they should be allowed to do this maintenance master plan, but we shouldn't sort of allow government to lose sight of the fact that there are some great opportunities going forward, particularly in the areas that they didn't investigate a lot about, things like the Sailing Club and their aspirations, things like Challenger Harbour, Bathers Bay, the old Long Jetty, all of those things that came out of conversations in the Three Harbours process many, many moons ago. And all the things that have been discussed since then, plans for ocean pools and those sorts of things. So they're all the sort of things that we shouldn't lose sight of, and we should ask the government not to lose sight of those into the longer term. I'd also like to obviously acknowledge the work that Alan Kelsall did in sending us an email that you all would have received what I've tried to do is include the points, the 2 dot points that he had recommended adding into our resolution. They've been included, they've been reworded and put into, one's a standalone dot point, the other one is included in another dot point, but also all of the work that he'd done in providing reasons for the recommendation, and hopefully those reasons then get included into the process of sending information through to the Department of Transport. So I recommend those changes to you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillors on this amendment? Councillor Lorva.
I might have just jumped in front of Fideli, but mine is really small. On the dot point that just got added, I think we want to have the first line be as and, not as and, essential connection. Just remove the D.
Didn't put you off for too long, Councillor Kamada.
Yeah, I just wanted to make some comments in support. That's appropriate now, is it? Yeah, I look at the F poll I spoke about. If we get this right, we'll deliver a historical, respectful, vibrant seaside environment that'll be world class, and also talked about the opportunity to rectify some of the mistakes in the past. And I think a great example of that is where the boat lifters was built just before the America's Cup. And, I think that was, in my mind, it was almost criminal. But we've got opportunities to rectify those sorts of things and also enhance the cultural and historical value through ideas like a maritime heritage trail that would link Victoria Quay to the fishing boat harbour, and you can pick up on the Indigenous and European history along the way, which I think is very important. Yeah, it's finally, I think it's critical that, and I really welcome the email from Alan Kelsel, is that right? Because I spoke about us being able to prioritise and identify, from the consultation, identify the important aspects that need to be improved upon. And just 2 points that I thought were really important were how he spoke about the type of attraction and needing greater diversity rather than competing with what Fremantle already has to offer. And I think the fishing boat harbour, along with the master plan that we're envisaging, could really take advantage of those opportunities to create that. So yeah, I'm very supportive of this, and thank you, Andrew, for your amendments.
Councillors, anyone further on the amendment? So I've struggled a little bit with the residential thing, but I have come to, I guess, resolve that I do support it. I think probably it's a timing issue for me. So it's a bit like Victoria Quay. At some point in that future, that may become land that's available for other uses. But because we still have a lot of land over on our side of the rail line that needs to be developed, I think it's a question of how do we keep moving at a pace with those development opportunities, because I think as waterfront development opportunities come on, those become less attractive potentially. So, and I think the conversation with Vic Key is around Fremantle bursting at the seams and spilling out over, and this is the same conversation with Fishing Boat Harbour, because government processes tend to move, state government processes tend to move a little slowly. I guess I have confidence if we dedicate ourselves to that as a council, that we can achieve the outcomes that we need to achieve on our side of the fence before these opportunities are realised, which is why I'm comfortable to have that sort of inclusion of residential in there. But I think it's sort of something we need to bear in mind when we're thinking about what are our priorities for the city. We have to bear in mind that we've got a window potentially with some of these opportunities that are a little bit broader. Councillor Sullivan, did you want to close it all, or shall we?
I just picking up on what Councillor Lorva was saying. I didn't quite see where that was. So the typo's we're fixed up. Okay. So I will just say, I mean, I did struggle with the residential aspect a little bit as well, and went through Alan's stuff quite a lot. I did sneak in the words suitable and appropriate in places where he had just said residential, because I think it is important that it's not just sort of some sort of blanket approach. There may be types of residential that do work in the fishing boat harbour, and we should sort of actively explore those because it would add value to that place. But yes, we obviously also need to be incredibly careful in doing that, and the fishing industry and the maintenance industry have emphasised that in the past. And I don't think anything would just suddenly get snuck through that would be in any way jeopardising that activity, nor should it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Well,
just going to say that the reasons that I put as well, they're obviously not part of the amendment, but presumably, hopefully, they can be included in the public record because normally we're meant to put reasons for any amendment. So, if that's, yep.
Thanks. Yep, that's good. Well, there will be. Okay, so I'm going to put this one, the amendment, to a vote. All those in favour of the amendment? And that looks to be unanimous as well. And back to the item as amended. Anyone further? All right, let's put the item as amended. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Gosh, good work, everyone. And the second FPOL item is for the tender for Griffiths Park upgrade. So I'll move the officer's recommendation, which was the FPOL committee recommendation. Have a seconder for that? Councillor Archibald, thank you. Councillors, over to you. Any speakers? Councillor Lorber.
First, I would want to thank the staff for doing a bunch of work to put forward a few alternate recommendations, given some of the comments that were made at FPOL and in my commentary at the FPOL meeting, I later found out that some of the things that I had thought that could have been maybe dialed back from the plans to help save money actually are no longer part of that, even though they're still on the design. And so I'm fully supporting the recommendation that came out of FPOL at this point. I think that some of the things that are in the alternate recommendations would really kind of gut the project in a way, even though it would save some money. And so getting it done and getting it done right, I think is a really wonderful thing. And also, not to mention, I'm a huge fan of the Sump to Swale program, and getting one of these done in a park, I think, might set off a chain reaction. We can get more done around the city. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Archibald.
I don't know what's happening with the mics. It turned people off. I just thought I'd mention the purpose of the other comment that was made by the officers, which relates to management of dogs off lead, because this park will be a dogs off lead park, and I do feel that the works that are going to be done will only make the park more attractive, and that we already have clashes in various parks, as every councillor on this council knows, that when dogs are off lead, it's an ongoing problem. So the officers were very happy to commit to looking at a broader strategy across the city in how we may be able to better manage dogs in areas which are for off-lead use. So that's the purpose of that comment in the agenda. And, we've yet to have the Virginia Ryan and Stevens Reserve review come back to the council, and that will be a really interesting test in terms of what the public have had to say about that. But I thank the officers for putting that comment in, because I do think it's something we're going to have to deal with more, and particularly the idea in smaller areas where we might need to fence it off so that there is an area the dogs can run off lead, but it's not going to clash with children and other uses in the park. Thank you.
Thank you. On that, I can report that I've had an initial meeting with the parks team about coming to an IEM with a broader discussion about what sort of parks for dogs, where, how, all of that. So they're preparing an item to come to everyone for a bit of a discussion in the not too distant future. All right, and are we ready to put this one to a vote? Excellent. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Okay, we're at C items. This is quite incredible. So monthly finance. Oh, actually, can I just see who wants to speak on which C items? If people have a say, Councillor Vusic, which all 1, 2, 3. I'm going to say it's the first one, but okay. Any other speakers on C items? People who want it voted? Okay, I might just put 2 and 3 quickly on block, if that's all right. So I'll move those, seconded by Councillor Thompson. All those in favour? Thank you very much. And we'll go back to C item 1. So I'll move the officer's recommendation, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Councillor Vusic.
Thank you. There could be some really good reasons for the decrease in the profit that we reported in the 30th of June 2022, when our P&L showed that we had roughly $10.7 million in profit. And then when you have a look at our July OCM monthly financial statements, we have a net result of 5.5. And then when you have a look at this month's monthly financial report, it reports that we have 3.5. When I have a look at our position only 2 months ago, we had enough money to pay for the South Beach toilets, the leisure centre roof, the underground power in Hilton, the Griffith Park upgrade, and we had, monies left over to do other things in the city. However, it is, for me, when I have a look at the financial report of this month, and it shows that the profit has been reduced to 3.5 million, without any transparency nor explanation, it does raise a red flag for me. The financial results keep changing without explanation, which makes the monthly financial report and variance analysis unreliable. I don't think it's just my view, but I think if you have a look at it from an accounting perspective, we're not practicing monthly accrual accounting, which is a problem and which gives us that variance and the unreliability. And what I mean by practicing monthly accrual accounting, it means picking up the correct expenses in the correct period. Our monthly financial reports do not show the true financial position. This means that we are not keeping track of our purchase orders, interest, salaries, depreciation, and various other list of expenses that the city engages. Now, I'm going to give you an example that comes out of our schedule of payments for this month. And that is, we have a payment of $23,100 to Serona. The invoice is dated July 2021. And, the question comes to me is, why is it presented 15 months later? This is a good example why we need to start practicing monthly accrual accounting, because I think it'll give you a lot better accuracy, and that in itself makes for better decision making. And I guess the first question that I'd like to put to the Chamber is, what can we do to introduce monthly accruing accounting, which will give elected members better financial management? And the second one is an explanation of the 7.2 million that's been reduced over the last 2 months. I'm happy to put that through electronically, which I would have done, but I just didn't get to it. But I do think there are such variances in this financial reporting, which makes it awfully difficult to make informed decisions. Thank you.
Right, I might see if I can get a comment either from the CEO or Director of City Business. I do recall, and those who are at Audit and Risk Management Committee might also recall, that there was a conversation about accounting methodology and also what we're required to do under the local government requirements. I might go to Mr. Hammond on that.
Through the chair, so I'm happy to answer in more detail if you provide the questions on notice. Just on the 7.2 question, we're yet to roll forward the surplus, and we're finalising carry forwards this week, so we're dealing with that at the moment. With regard to accrual accounting, neither the Act or the Australian Accounting Standards require us to do monthly accrual accounting. So at the moment, we adhere to the requirements of the Act.
Right, if we want more detail on that, then in writing might be the way to go. Anything else on the monthly financial report? Councillor Lorber? Oh, you two.
Go ahead, Councillor Kamara. I'll go after
See,
you.
he looks at me, he puts his hand up, then he presses his button. I'm just saying, Councillor Kamada, I'm
Okay,
giving
I'll
you the
jump in.
call.
Yeah, look, just comments more than anything relating to this report. I noticed that Councillor Groom had some queries, as did Councillor Vucic, and I suppose aspects of the reports are indeed accrual accounting, and so perhaps where it's practical and possible, and obviously within the Local Government Act, there are aspects that can be reported in that way and also explained to us to make it clear. So we're always going to have questions, obviously, but today I rang Kylie Lamb and just asked a few questions about some of the things I didn't understand, I suppose, to put it simply. And it was really good to have that discussion. And I was wondering if perhaps there could be the opportunity to have, and I'm just throwing it out there, to have some sort of 20-minute webinar type opportunity that you can opt into, and perhaps ask these questions on a Monday, perhaps after we've had a time to digest it over the weekend, and just so that we can clear these things up before the actual OMC. Thank you.
Good idea. Good idea. Thanks, Councillor Lorber.
Thank you. I just wanted to note that the difference between the monthly financial report for August versus July was most of the difference is under the trade and other payables, where in August it was 13.6 million and July was 11.308. So that's the vast majority of the difference between those 2 months. And I just was wondering if there might be just a quick explanation as to why that was 2.5 million more.
Give Matt a minute. No,
Yeah, I'll have to take that on notice. Yeah.
Cool. Good. I think that's a really good idea, Councillor Kamada. I do think going forward, the narrative structure of the reports is important, and it's something I think that we can work on more. And I'm sure the manager's happy to do that. I think it does need to read to somebody on the street. Why we use certain methodologies where, and we might become well versed in that over time through asking questions and getting answers, but this is an agenda that's public as well, so it is also walking people through it in quite a transparent way is important. I like to think in the future we might go to some kind of participatory budgeting kind of world, but we're a long way off if people can't understand our budget. So it's that kind of thing of how do we use it as an opportunity to inform and educate and bring people on the journey. So, yeah. Okay, I might put that one to a vote. All those in favour? Yeah, and against? Councillor Vucic against, everyone else in favour. Okay, we've got some notices of motion. First one comes from Councillor Lang. Would you like to move that and get a seconder, Councillor Lang? It was, you did, yeah, didn't have the numbers. I mean, you can withdraw it if you want, mate. Okay. We'll go to Councillor Lorber then.
Can I move do I need a seconder for the notice of motion? Can I move that?
Yep. And seconder for Councillor Lorber? Yes.
Sorry, the fact that motion has been to the planning committee and been voted on, but without enough numbers to delegation, is it then still open to the member to withdraw it?
I think if it's not moved, I would assume it's not moved.
It was moved at planning, that's wrong. I just want to clarify that. It was moved and voted on at planning. It's not normally an option to.
So it's lapsed. It's a lapsed motion.
That's all right?
Yep.
Okay.
Cool. Back to Councillor Lorber, who would like to move what is on the screen in front of you. Do we have a seconder for this one?
Ask a question.
You may.
Has this been to committee?
Nope.
Don't we need it to go to committee first?
I think it's a question of timing relevance, timing relevance. So
therefore, that would require a decision by yourself or the CEO. I'm not sure which.
Yeah. So I'm allowing Councillor Lorber to move it. I think it's the presiding member one. Does he have a seconder? Yep. Councillor Jones would like to second it, I think. That's what I'm seeing. Good. Councillor Lorber, over to you.
Great. Yes, as many of you are aware, there was an announcement made about fishing and fishing stocks and all the potential, the decimation of the fishing stocks in the future. There's a lot of, ships in our fishing boat harbor that are charter boats, commercial fishermen, and our town is full of recreational fishers that this potential, decision will have on what they do. And so I've had a few chats with some of the folks that operate boats, and all that their impression to me is that they would really like to have is just some more time to talk to the minister. And so I was just thinking about what we could do as a council to support those industries that are here in our city and support those people that do fish recreationally. There's a million different things that potentially could have been proposed, but I intentionally am leaving that discussion between in effect, the stakeholders of this that are impacted by this decision and the minister. I don't think it's our. I didn't want to get into the nitty gritty of what the right path forward is, other than it just being sustainable both for the fish stocks and for the people that depend upon it. So I'll just move it with that and hear the debate.
Councillor Jones as the seconder. Did you want to speak? Did anyone else want to speak? Councillor Archibald.
Thank you. I'm not opposed to sending a message, but I do want to just make a bit of a comment about the need to deal with the depletion of stock. And I can recall when I was involved with the Rottnest Island Authority Board that we were trying to mitigate the loss of stock, particularly in the reef areas around Rottnest Island and other areas nearby. And it was very difficult to get some of the fishing community on board. And I just think that a time has to come where we manage the stock of fish much better. I certainly have greater sympathy for people who are trying to earn a living out of it, but for recreational fishing, I just feel like there might have to come a time when they've got to give it a bit of a break to let the fish communities rebuild. So I don't want to send any kind of message in saying we need to discuss this further, because until there's a lot more information on the table, I would not be supportive of any kind of conclusion out of that. So I just wanted to put that point. Yeah.
Councillor Sullivan.
Yeah, thanks. And I'll sort of follow on a little bit from where Councillor Archibald left off. And, I note that my record on this has included action when the fish protection or habitat protection areas were being proposed at Rottnest. I actually was invited to participate in a workshop about those and made a very strong recommendation about one of the bays at Rottnest, and that was subsequently added into the areas. And now every time I snorkel there, the crayfish come out en masse to greet me and test my resolve not to catch them in that area. But what I've noticed over decades, and it's probably my entire life and longer, is the massive increase in recreational fishing and the power that lobby has, which is not in balance with the other activities, the industrial activities, and also the charter vessels. And I think that's what this recommendation really is trying to just highlight, is that there are industries out there that also need to have sustainable fisheries, and they need to be able to have access to them in a sort of a balanced way, along with the recreational fishers. We're already seeing a lot of small business fishers who used to do netting in the estuaries and in the protected bays all up and down the coast have to basically go out of business and the like. And I wouldn't like to see the tourism industry, if you like, the charter industry, also go that way because of the singular power of the recreational fishing lobby. It's great that they have that lobby, don't get me wrong, but they are so powerful that sometimes I think the industries get left behind.
Councillor Kamada.
Back again. Look, yeah, we've been through this before. You mentioned the lobster, and tough action was taken about 10 to 15 years ago, and we've seen the stocks bounce back. The minister is in an unenviable position. He has to make a decision based on the best available science. But I suppose what I like about this is that it also considers the human toll. And there are businesses that will be affected. And I suppose what we're asking here is just to keep that in mind, appreciating that tough decisions have to be made to make sure the stocks are well preserved.
Councillors, any further? I have a slight concern, but I won't necessarily do anything about it, that it puts charter, commercial and recreational fishers on the same bandwidth, if you know what I mean. And I guess what we choose to do for recreation versus what someone relies on for their livelihood sits a little bit differently for me. So I'll just kind of put that out there. If there's a broader sentiment about that, I guess it's something we can consider. But yeah, I think the fish stock issue is real, present and significant. Councillor Thompson.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Look, it's just a procedural issue. Could we have in the minutes your decision to allow it to come straight to council? Because I mean, it's covered in standing orders, obviously, but I think it's because, as Councillor Pemberton has pointed out, normally this would go to committee. It's useful to document why we chose to deal with it here.
More than happy with that. Did you wish to speak on the item? No. Microphone off. Councillor Lorver, did you want to close?
Yes, I thank the other councillors for your comments, and I think we all share the same general feelings about this. And there are, people that I know that go out and fish recreationally. There's more than several, but they know that something needs to change. But the concern is that once you go to what's being proposed, there's no real other measures left, and so there's a lot of things in between. And the same, I was having a conversation with a charter boat operator who said that they would have to close. And whenever they have people come in to do that fishing, they stay in hotels, they go out to eat, and they contribute to our local economy. And a lot of that's here in Fremantle. So I thank you for the indulgence for allowing this to come forward, because the period to make comment closes on the 30th. So we're beginning this in just in time. And yeah, and hopefully there is a further dialogue that takes into account the charters, the commercials, and recreational. Maybe it's not a one-size-fits-all, but that's not really for us to decide. It's just to encourage that dialogue to happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lorver. So I'll put that one to the vote. All those in favour? Yeah. Is that unanimous? Yes, it is. Excellent. It's where my eyesight really gets tested, because some of you look like you've got two hands, and others not so much. Two heads? No, not in this country. All right, I will. Gosh, so no urgent business, late items, or confidential business, as far as I know. You could.
Sorry, I realised that the debate had closed, and so I didn't raise it at the item. But is it possible to get a bit more information about this issue, because so that we can have a good look at it?
Yep. Yeah, I think there's quite a lot online about the consultation that's been open. So, and I imagine members of the public can also make a submission up to the 30th. Is that right, Councillor Lorver? Yep. Cool. All right. I think I'm going to close the meeting at an amazingly early 6:49. The time's wrong on these, by the way.